Well, is this the greatest economy in U.S. history? Good morning, I'm Neil Cavuto. Glad to have you. Let's get to the bottom line, shall we? From Ben Stein and Charles Payne and Laura Swartz, along with Patricia Powell, Jerry Boyer, and Tracy Burns. All right, here's what we've got. Low inflation, nearly full employment, rising wages, pretty low interest rates, stocks and home ownership at record levels. Now, that's today's economy by today's numbers. Is this the greatest economy then in U.S. history? Because a lot of economists tell me just by the numbers, it is. Jerry, what do you think?
Yeah, it looks that way. Neil, we went back and looked at the data going all the way back to 1820, which is as far back as you can go. And I can't find, just going by the numbers, any time in American history when we've had wealth creation at the same level we've had over the past 3 or 4 years. Now, sometimes when you had spurts in wealth, but then you'd always have a panic, or what they used to call them panics, depressions after that. And that mix between wealth creation and broad distribution of wealth, we've never had that before in American history, at least since 1820. It's amazing.
So why don't we hear more about it?
Well, I think because Bush is behind it, and a lot of folks, well, first of all, the war in Iraq is setting a negative tone for every aspect in the economy. But I would say this is the second best. I think the Reagan economy was better than this economy, and even the 1960 economy. But what all three have in common, cutting taxes, low tax rates that got the economy going, and everyone was able to participate, as Jerry talked about. But it's really a shame that so many Americans feel so bad about themselves and where they are, although they're doing great, particularly compared to previous generations. And I don't know how to turn that around.
Ben Stein?
Well, Charles is completely right. Compared with previous generations, the wealth of this country is phenomenal, breathtaking, off the charts, unbelievable. But this is really two economies. This is a very, very wonderful economy for the rich, like Charles, and like our missing friends in action, Greg and Jim. But for the ordinary person, wages reached a peak in 1973 and have never reached that peak since, adjusted for inflation. There's an awful lot of home foreclosures, awful lot of people in the upper Midwest who are really bleeding as the auto industry hemorrhages. For the rich, though, it's an incredibly great economy. For people who have capital, human capital or financial capital, it's an incredibly great economy.
How do you define rich, Ben?
You're rich. However rich you are, you're rich.
No,
people ask me that. Now, I would say 20 million in assets makes you rich
now,
by
see,
my
Ben,
standards, so you're rich.
Ben, you're just being silly. Tracy, my point is that you can say, as Ben just did, that this is just a rich person's economy.
No, I'm not. Neil, with respect, I'm not saying that. It's a great economy for everyone. It's just a lot better for the rich.
All right, Tracy, what do you make of just that point?
It's a phenomenal economy, and 20 million assets aside, I'm not really sure of the 10 people that have them. For those of us that don't, all is well, and we're living really well. We're living much better than we ever have. And I tell you, I think it's because this is an entrepreneurial economy as opposed to an economy with a bunch of people that have jobs. Technology, the advancement of information is out there like it's never been before, and that's what's going to keep this economy going. And to Charles's point, taxes are at a 20-year low in relative dollars, and that should be something that the Democrats or whoever gets in keeps in mind, because the entrepreneur and the small business is what's keeping this economy going forward, and they have to be very careful when it comes to raising taxes on
Laura, the inference seems to be from a lot of the candidates, particularly Democratic candidates, is that since there are a lot of rich folks out there, more of them than there were in the Reagan years, by just the sheer numbers, tax them to make for a fairer playing field.
Well, right now, the top 1% of this country averages $44,000. Because of those tax breaks. The average middle classer, $744. And this is at the same...
Wait a minute. 44,000 for what?
$44,000 is the average tax break that the top 1% of the country is getting.
What does the average 1% pay?
It was overdue.
But those are the people with the 20 million.
Right, and you know what? The average middle classer is getting $744 back a year. But yet that average middle classer is paying 80% more for health care. That's $6,000 a year per family, 44% more for education. We've got college graduates walking across the stage this May with $19,000 of average debt. So you took those two units together, add that with gas prices. That's why 55% of Americans are saying the economy is getting worse, not better. They're not looking at the Dow, they're looking at their pocketbook.
Patricia, what do you make of that?
Well, wow, I'm just so impressed you have all of this data, but none of it makes any sense. The fact is that taxes are lower, but tax receipts are the highest that they've ever been in this country. And they've been higher this year, they were higher last year than the year before, and they were higher the year before.
But the middle class doesn't see the benefit of that, especially among independents and Democrats.
The benefit of that is having a job. The benefit of an economy like this is being able to bring food home to your family, bring a paycheck home to your family, and to live in a house that and be able to borrow money.
And have some benefits, and half half of the jobs created have no benefits and they're part-time.
There's no rule that you have to have benefits in a job.
Well, how are they going to pay for it otherwise? Because they're having a real time making,
Well,
hard
Jerry,
time making
you were shaking your head before. What do you say?
Oh, I mean that's complete nonsense. Every poll that looks at how the American people feel about their own economic picture says that the vast majority of Americans feel good about their own economic outlook. People like Laura tell them that the economy's bad, so when you ask the typical American, is the American economy doing well, they say no. When you ask them, is your economy doing well? Are you optimistic? Are you better off now than you used to be? They say yes. The American people understand that this is a time of prosperity. Now, I know that there are all these statistics about how wages are flat, but people don't just get wages. Average Americans have stocks, they have bonds, they have a little consulting on the side. Very few people have nothing but a W-2. And when you take into account all forms of income, it's at the highest level in American history.
Wait a second. With all due respect, how many Americans do you think do consulting on the side? Do you think that's a really large number?
I don't know, Ben. We recently rehabbed a house, and a whole lot of people.
Wait a second.
My family and I.
Two people out of 300 million. That's not a very statistically meaningful calculation.
Well, okay, maybe we were the only. Ben, maybe we were the only people in America who did any rehab work on our house. But let's assume that other people did it. Everybody there was a subcontractor. Nobody there was getting paid wages. Everyone was getting paid in a subcontracting way.
Well,
so there are a whole lot of people who put up drywall
you raise a
on the
good
side.
point, Jerry, as to you, Ben. But Tracy, my point is, we can pick apart the quality of jobs like we could pick apart the quality of jobs 10 years ago when we had a Democratic president of the White House. All I notice is that a big difference, the war, as Charles said, could be an issue between how the economy was covered then versus